Sources report that some 30,000 children and youth are awaiting adoption in Canada. That's more than the population of Spruce Grove, Alberta, and more than twice that of Summerside, PEI. But statistics aren't always good storytellers. They reveal nothing of the names and faces and rich stories and lives changed by adoption. We're about to fix that. In the country that wove Anne of Green Gables into its psyche, we'll bring you the real-life stories of adoption and adoptees. Join us as we meet the people behind the statistics. This is Context, a look at life beyond the headlines.
Labours of Love is the adoption book written by our first guest, Deborah Brennan, an adoptive mother, an adoption educator. Would you welcome Deborah to Context? Great to have you, Deborah.
Hello.
Thank you. Come on in, have a seat. It is a beautiful book.
Thank you.
You write in Labours of Love that quiet, well-planned, and persistence is needed to adopt. And here we've got 30,000 children waiting for adoption in Canada. Why is it so difficult to get that out the gate?
Well, that's a very complicated question, actually. There are many, many reasons why. Most of the children that we're talking about are over the age of 3. Sibling groups, children who have been in care for quite a long time. And so parents, prospective adoptive parents, are sometimes hesitant to adopt older children. There's not enough education around adopting older children. There could be challenges in the foster care system where children are going back and forth into foster care and back to birth families. It's very complicated, but there are ways in which we can improve these statistics and we can educate people as to the joys of adopting older children.
Most of us have no idea that there are 30,000 children who actually, they're not going, these are ones that are actually on a ready-to-adopt list, according to the Adoption Council of Canada.
That's
and
right.
It's even an old statistic. We haven't even got this year's head count.
Mm-hmm.
Give us an idea who they are. Put story to them. Who are they?
Well, there are children from all across the country. In Ontario alone, there's over 8,000. And there's many children who are of Aboriginal descent. There are children who come from all walks of life, and some that are in groups of 3 or 4 children, all, sibling groups, as they say. So, and varying stories. They all have different stories. Some of them have come from very difficult backgrounds.
That's the fear Canadians
Mm-hmm. have.
There's going to be baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Address that concern.
Well, I think it's a valid concern, and this is where education comes into play, and where also post-adoption support comes into play. There's a great need in our country to have resources in place for families who choose to adopt older children. And that's one of the challenges that we're trying to meet as well, is to be able to help those families after they adopt older children, to guide them through the process and through the transition of going from temporary care to really understanding what it means to have a permanent family.
You had an open adoption. Can you tell us why that's becoming more common, and it's more common as these older adoptions are needed? Yeah,
it is becoming more common, which is really, I think, a positive thing. When we adopted, we really wanted an open adoption. We had had a biological child, and I couldn't imagine someone making the decision to place a child for adoption. And I really felt that I wanted this child to know his or her mother, father, birth family, extended family as much as possible.
Beautiful shots of you and Danielle with the whole family, and that's the birth mom. And
Yes.
that continues to this day.
Yes, Diana is 13 now, and we see her birth family very frequently. And she has another brother now. So for us, it's been a tremendous learning experience, and it continues to be as she gets older. But it's also positive because she has the ability to ask questions and to understand the circumstances around which the decision was made.
You took your story and then all these other wonderful stories in Labors of Love. I mean, from all the way from a family who has 14 children, 12 of them adopted, to someone who has just one. Mm-hmm. Tell us, what's the common needs adoptive parents face? Like, let's be honest about this. Mm-hmm. This is a challenging thing to adopt a child who's over the age of 3. Mm-hmm. It's challenging anytime, but what's the common needs they face?
I think there needs to be, as much as possible, an understanding of the background of that child, where that child has grown up and the circumstances around that child to the point that a parent adopts that little person. And so, but it's also an embracing of that past and acknowledging of that past that's important. And if they can embrace that with the understanding that their child should know as much as possible about their birth family and their heritage, then they're going to lay the groundwork for a very trusting relationship going forward with that child.
Deborah, let's hear some of these stories, because I know we've got guests in our studio audience today. The Kelly family is here, Joanne and Paul and Wallace. Tell us why you chose to do an international adoption.
Okay, I'm going to let Joanne lead on this.
Well, I think it probably stems from a whole lifetime of circumstances. When I think back to all the little deposits in my life, and then when we became married in our life, of exposure to other people adopting, of what God was doing in our heart to love other children who weren't born to us. And so the question isn't like one circumstance or one time, but a whole I'd say a treasure chest, really, of circumstances, people, letting God open our hearts to love somebody else. And then, well, it kind of culminated in our lives in a dream, a literal dream that Paul had about a little boy in our other son's room. And that little boy ended up being Wallace 12 years ago now.
And,
we adopted.
And difficult to get somebody from another country?
Extremely difficult from Brazil. Extremely difficult, yeah. So it takes a lot of determination, patience, work. We had friends and family ask us when we were just going to give up, because it would just take a lot out of us.
Wallace, I'm not going to ask if you've been easy or tough.
I'll answer that. He's been easy.
Okay, let's go to the Jans family. Tell us what your experience has been like.
Our experience has been fantastic. Like you said, obviously, I mean, it doesn't matter. We have two biological boys as well. So I think one of the big things for us has been to instill in our adoptive child the understanding that we see her identically as we see the other two boys, that there is absolutely no difference in our eyes. And I think for us, you know, we've had a revelation of what God does with people, how he brings people in, this family.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll be back with some more adoption stories. Deborah Brennan, thank you very much for writing Labors of Love and putting families like this out there for all of us to read about. Think about what's possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now it's time to find out what you think. Should open adoptions be the norm or the exception? Send us your answers by phone, email, Facebook, or Twitter, and get in on the conversation. Our studio audience is taking a live vote. We'll have those results in a moment. When we return, the story of Dan and Sue McDonald and how their adoption led Dan to reconcile with his own family. That story next.